Hello, everyone. This is Saqib. I'm one of the founding engineers at Langbase, and along with me is Asher. He's gonna go ahead and introduce himself.
Hello everyone. I didn't realize my video was so much up. But yeah, I am was one of the founding engineers here at Langbase. Uh, and yeah, I've been working alongside with Sakib.
Okay, so today we're gonna talk about what is this all of us around MCPs, what are MCPs, and how you can get started with MCPs. First, I'm gonna go into a quick intro of MCPs, and then we're gonna go ahead and wipe code a multi-agent workflow with command.new, and that will be using an MCP to talk to different applications like Slack and DBT and whatnot. So to begin with, what are MCPs? What is all this fuss around MCPs? Why we need them, and whatnot? So MCP is an open standard that enable developers to build two-way connection between their data source and the AI power tool. So think of Slack, right? Slack is there, and you wanna communicate with Slack. One way is you will go ahead and write all the tools for the Slack, and then you're gonna add the definition of all the tools into your LLM calls, and then you will allow it to communicate with the Slack. On the other hand, Anthropic came up with this open protocol, which is like MCP, and what it allows all the application owners like Slack and DeepWiki or GitHub and whatnot to define their own MCP servers. Since they are the one building their own applications, they are the best ones know how best to use their applications. So what you will typically see in a MCP server is a bunch of tool calls that you give as a definition to you connect it with your MCP client. That could be Cursor, that could be that could be cloud application on the desktop, that could be an online client and whatnot. You connect them, and then they talk to each other, and they are able to use the tools from the other application. Um, I'm gonna quickly do a small drawing here just to give a better idea of what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna quickly share my screen. Um, okay. Is it visible?
Yeah, your screen. You're
Okay.
sharing your screen. Yeah.
Yeah. So usually what happen is you have an LLM, and then you do bunch of stuff with it, right? You give it an input. You give it an input, and you expect an output, right? Now it is only able to give you answer on the questions that it is pre-trained on, right? But and it doesn't have access to your own data or your own application, and there is bunch of data over the internet or your personal data that it doesn't have access to, and it doesn't have access to your own applications as well. The problem with that is you're not able to unlock very powerful basic workflows, such as, hey, go and look at my Slack and see what did we decide about pricing, or maybe go and check my emails and see if I receive any marketing email, or maybe if you were expecting a particular email, and it can go ahead and take a look for that. And how we enable LLMs to interact with these applications is we define tool calls. Tool calls are nothing but bunch of functions. Let's say read messages from Slack, right? Um, and then it will take some params, and then LLM is gonna use this tool call to go and read messages from Slack. And how it usually works is input comes in, and let's say input contains uh, something related to Slack, or a message or an indication that it needs to use Slack. For instance, hey, I come in, and let's say it just to extend it, it takes in channel, and then maybe number of messages, right? And then When I go to LLM and I ask a question, let's say something like, hey, can you summarize last 50 messages from engineering channel, right? um, I give it to this LLM, and LLM, what it does is it figures out it has access to this tool call, which allows it to read messages from Slack, and then it tells you, I need to, and it based on your message, it decide that I need to make a call to this tool. And what happens is when you give this input, LLM gives you back a tool call. And tool call is usually like LLM has decided it needs to make a call to from Slack, and it will also tell you the arguments. For instance, in this case, it will tell you engineering, um, and let's say 50, right? Now it's up to you that you implement this tool call. And by that, I mean that you have to figure out the API of Slack. You need to know which endpoint to call, and then you need to have a deployment or API where this particular thing is hosted, and it takes care of all the auth and whatnot. And then it goes in, it talks to this API, and then it gives a response back to LLM. So, for instance, let's say it brings out an array of 50 messages. Let's say uh, one, two, and then up to 50. Okay. And then it gives all those messages back to LLM. Now LLM has received the response of this tool call, and now it is going to, based on our question, it's going to summarize it, and then it is going to send us this output here. So all this thing here, all of this thing you have to manage on your own. um, b- and then you have to, for each of the applications out there, you have to build all those tool calls, implement those, and then take care of this interaction. Now what MCP does is MCP gives you all of this stuff, but in a box. Let's say think of it MCP, let's say a Slack MCP, right? It will have a bunch of tool call. Let's say read messages, right? And then it will have list channels or list users. All of this plus its implementation, like how this API part would work out, all of this is figured out inside this MCP. All you need to do is for MCPs, you need to host this server. Usually, all of the companies which write their MCP servers, they also host their MCP servers. And usually you would see something like, let's say, mcp.slack.com or something, if it is working over SSE. By the way, SSE and streamable HTTP, these are the two protocols over these works, over the MCP servers work. So you have to write, first thing, you have to have like write a server if you writing a custom MCP server, or just use from the company, right? Whichever product you're trying to use, just use their MCP. See if they have an official MCP, just use that. Second thing that you need is usually MCP client. MCP client is what communicates with MCP server. And we need client because of these protocols, how they work, and all of to take care of all of these interactions. And there are a bunch of clients that exist. If you're using a desktop application, if you use Cursor, Windsurf, or Claude, any of those applications, that the desktop application, they usually they are an MCP server, and all you need to give is this just URL, and then it takes care of all the stuff. Sometimes with the servers, you would see they will also need an auth token, obviously do the authentication if it is behind an authentication layer. And usually they will have instructions on how you can obtain that particular token to go with the server. um, and that's how the basic MCP setup works out. We at Langbase also have two MCP server. One is for the SDK part, for the API. If you want to do anything with MCP, without actually figuring out APIs and whatnot, and you just want to give it access to your AI agent, which can take actions on your behalf, you can do that. There is also an MCP server for our docs. So in case if you want to just know if you want to just know what are the documentation for particular pieces and how they work out, you can use those as well. So if you go to langbase.com/docs and come down here to the MCP servers part, you would see both of our servers listed here. It also goes briefly into what are MCPs, what you can do with those, um, what these two MCP servers contain. Um, and then it also lists all of the tool calls that are there, and you see there is also a URL for the MCP that you can use. And then it also goes into, hey, if you want to use it with a Claude desktop, how do you connect it and use it? And with Cursor, Windsurf, and whatever your favorite tool is, you can literally just go online and see for that particular tool how to connect an MCP server with that. But this part is generic regardless of which MCP server you want to use. These steps are pretty much same, unless they have a particular thing going on there. um, and then, for instance, this particular example, if you see, it just connects with the Langbase MCP server, and it says, hey, give me an overview of all the pipe and memory agent. It goes in Claude desktop, and then it uses these tool calls. If we see list pipe agent, list memory, and then it gives you all the details without you having to do all the API calls and whatnot. So these are this, and then there are a bunch of popular MCP servers that we stored on command.new. So Slack, Intercom, DeepWiki, Cloudflare, browser rendering. If you are using command.new, if you're familiar with that, you don't even have to go in and input those URLs. You can just chat with it, and it's going to build a multi-agent workflow that uses one of these MCP servers, if that's something you have prompted it to do. Um, but other than that, we also have access, not access, but we also support all the MCP servers over SSE protocol over the agent in our agent SDK. So if we go to Langbase SDK agent, and if you go to MCP here, MCP servers. So if you're using our API, agent.run, and you want to use an MCP agent, our API, and particularly this endpoint agent.run, it also acts as a MCP client. So you don't have to worry about your hosting your own client and building one. So all you can do is you can come in here and you can give MCP server spec here, and you can see how it works. And all you need to do is type and then authorization token if any required. And if you want to, want some fine grained control here, like allow tools, you can list those or enabled, and then custom header if any of them required. So it is ported in agent.run, and you can start using it right away without worrying about much over the API. And then if you go over to examples and you go into agent examples and you go to agent run with MCP, you see there is also a nice coding example where agent.run is using DeepWiki MCP server. So if you see, it's pretty straightforward. You just add this param here, MCP server, type URL, and then name, and then just the URL of the MCP server. And then the rest is just regular body that you usually give to any LLM call, like model, API, instructions, and whatnot. And this particular one is like, hey, you're a helpful assistant, help summarize the text, and then just what transport protocol does this version use according to this. So DeepWiki usually index all of those repositories from GitHub, so it usually knows that kind of stuff. So if I just go ahead and run it, it goes and fetch that, and it tells you like, hey, it's both client connection to a stringle HTTP, and then it also supports SSE for streaming messages. So that's the gist of MCP, is how you can use them with Langbase or in general with any LLM. So far, any questions before I move ahead with command.new and we actually code some of the agents that uses these?
Wow. So it all seems really powerful. So I do have one question though. As I've seen in multiple MCP clients, like whenever they need to run an MCP call, they ask for permission. So if we do this, if we call an MCP server through Langbase, is it going to ask for our permission to run, or is it just going to run it?
That's a good question. Yeah, so it usually it depends which MCP server you're using. If you're using some of the ones that are usually read or not much, that then they usually go ahead and just work. For the for the ones that needs such granular access, I think you're gonna need and configure your API. You see how it says enabled, and then you need to know, okay, if this one is enabled or not, and then it's gonna go ahead and take action on your behalf. But you can also control it and change the behavior depending upon the API. In command.new, I know we have configured so that they usually can take action, but it's mostly the read related and some basic post, not delete and stuff. So it's configured like that in command.
Right. So as long as it is not doing any, not taking any, harmful actions, it's all right.
Yeah, it should work fine on command.new.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah. Is there any other questions, or we can just go ahead with
I think we can go
some
ahead.
demos?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna quickly go to command and share the screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes,
I'm
I
on the
can.
command one. Okay. So let's start with the basic demo on. Let's start with the deep wiki one. So let's say, hey, bear an AI agent. I want an AI agent that can go ahead and give me answers about any of the repositories perhaps it has indexed. So build an AI agent that uses deep deep MCP server to answer detailed questions about indexed public GitHub repositories. With let's see, okay, with latest indexed info from DPK. All right, let's see. Okay, so for those who know command, it's a they know how it's gonna work out. But for those who are here first time, command is an agent that can build very powerful multi-agent workflows for you. So think of it like a agent that can build agents for you. So for instance, I just asked it to build an AI agent that can go ahead and speak with our deep wiki server and and answer our questions from there. So it's going to go ahead and it figures out how to communicate with the deep wiki server. So if you see, it just goes and instantiate Langbase workflow. It's a multi-agent workflow, and if you see, what it does is it creates a step, GPT 4.1 mini, OpenAI, and then bunch of instructions. And then if you see the MCP servers part, the one I just showed you, it's gonna figure out that it needs DBK server. It properly populates all the parameters, and then it it goes ahead and it also builds an application layer on top of it, so we can interact with our agentic application. And then, okay, I think it was doing the routes and other stuff. It's ready to go. I already have my key populated there. I'm gonna go ahead and click deploy. So while it's deploying, we can go and see the agent flow. So command also generate this nice workflow, the flow of your agentic workflow. So the workflow it just generated, you can just visualize like how it is doing everything. So it has a main function. It parses the input from the event being a request in this case, because this workflow is converted into an API, and then it calls. Okay, it's deployed already, but I'm gonna just quickly go through this, and then we can go ahead and test that. Um, so it parses the input from the event. It calls the DPKey GitHub workflow. That's the name that it gave it, and it initializes the Langbase clients, creates the workflow. Debug mode is enabled by default. Okay, and then executes the DPKey step. And if it error occurs, all that stuff going on there, and then on the ideal path, it's gonna run Langbase agent with OpenAI GPT 4.1 mini, and then it connects to MCP servers, and then internally it talks to that. It figures out which tool calls to make. It populates all the parameters by default. It makes the call, gets the response, and then it gives you the final response. uh, and then it process the GitHub repository query, generate the response, and then return the output, and then just end the workflow. So at this step, particularly connect with the DFWiki server. At this point, it is doing all the technical stuff that we went through earlier. That it connects with the server, it does all the communication, it authenticates if needed, and figures out the tool calls, make the tool calls, get the response, and do actions on top of that. So our app is deployed. It gets this nice UI, and then it also gets the URL. And for instance, it also giving me example questions. So it's like, hey, let's see, how does Next.js does server side rendering? Let's see what it does here. So I just selected the option here, and just sent it to the agent. I'd say it's gonna take a couple of seconds because it needs to communicate with the DPK server, figure out things, and give us response. Um, okay, da 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 da.
It takes time.
Yeah, I mean, it needs to connect with the server and figure out a bunch of stuff behind the scene. Perhaps we can stream what's going on behind the scene. I think that would make it less. Um, that will make it look faster, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we got the response here. It says Next.js handles server side rendering primarily through get server side props, and then it gives you all the details there: static versus dynamic rendering, build, output, optimization, all of the stuff. Ashra, do you have any question that you want to ask here, or maybe any other question that we can try from one of these here? Let's
Let's try another question from here.
Okay, show me the implementation of use state in React. Okay, I know what
Oh,
it's
that's a
gonna do.
complicated one.
Uh, I'm gonna just give it a shot and see what it comes up with. Anyhow, while it's happening, I don't want to change the screen because it's productive or not. But we can go ahead and see in the console, like it gives you all the details there. So if you just wanna see the raw responses, what is going on behind the scene, you can see that as well. And it just
Oh, it's done.
added two entries. Okay, okay, yeah, there you go. It implement. So there is implementation of use state. It does with mount state on the initial rendering, dispatch, set state. I think it's describing the internal working inside React, right?
Yeah.
It's like mount state and then React Fiber Hook JS and whatnot. Cool. And then obviously, if you build an application with command.new, you can go ahead and you can copy the URL. You can go make it public. You can just public code, public complete application, or you can change private, and then you can just share the URL with other folks, and they can take out the application and start using it. You also get the complete code, so there is no black box there. If you want to just read the code and see what's going on there, or if you want to just edit the code here, you can do that. All of that gets versioned. um, and then on top of that, you also get a nice API. So so the agent that just got deployed and we were working through the UI, we were using that, but you also get an URL that you can just copy paste and you can use in your application. There is like pre-built snippets of Python, Node.js, and there's just curl request if you want to do that. Um, there is one more thing that I wanted to talk about and show is one is this README feature. I'm not sure if many folks are aware there is nice README. If you want to know what exactly is going on, how to use this particular agent, there is that. Um, and then there are also traces that we recently introduced. So if you go into the traces tab, you can see all of your runs that have happened for this particular agent. um, you can see the number of steps, the trace IDs, and then also duration. So this particular one, we know the first one took longer, so it shows like 37 seconds, and the last one was quicker. That was like 27 seconds. And if we just click on that, we can see all the details and execution stuff, like when it started, how long it took, and then the workflow ID and the trace ID and all the detailed output. In this particular case, it was just like a single step, so it just shows like this type. It is more helpful and to help you see and debug what is happening on each of the steps. If you have multi-step workflow, each of them appear on the left side, and you can go and inspect each of them. um, just give it a try. Let us know what do you think of traces, and if you would want a particular feature there. If you want, if you have any feedback, happy to take and improve on that. So that was one basic demo with Deep Wiki. Next thing that I'm gonna do is take it for a spin and make a more complicated one. I want one with Slack. So I was taking it for a spin the other day. So I have a pre-written a pre-written prompt that I'm gonna just write like, hey, build a Slack agent that can do bunch of stuff, that can summarize the last 5 messages in social, or this is just an example, that can answer questions like, um, and then like, what decision was made about the new onboarding workflow, what did we last talk about the pricing experiments, and then like weekly digest, or let's say from engineering and sport. It could be anything, just like generic stuff. And then build a Slack agent that uses Slack MCP and can answer questions like these. Okay, let's see. Hopefully, it builds a nice agent um, that can actually do all of that stuff. So it goes ahead and start building this, and right off the bat, we can see that it needs three three keys. Langbase one, it's going to figure it out if you are logged in. And then OpenAI one, it's already populated. And then additionally, it also needs a Slack board token. So in this particular MCP, that Slack one, you need to do a bunch of stuff before you can actually use a Slack MCP. So by you need to go ahead and set up a Slack application. You need to give it access to different channels, and then you generate an access token, and that's the token it is talking about. I'm gonna quickly take a detour here while it is building, and show you how you can set up one. So if we go into MCP server and then we go to Slack one, Um, okay,
Thing, yeah, authentication.
I think it's
Under,
sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to say
Okay,
that,
yeah, it's
yeah,
here. Yeah,
yeah,
it was collapsed. Yeah, thanks. So it goes into the detailed step of how you can actually set up your Slack bot that would act as an MCP for your Slack server. So it goes into detail. Hey, you need to follow a bunch of these steps and set up permissions. Here, Ashur, we can set all the permissions. So if you give the question that you asked earlier, so if you have given it permissions, it's gonna go and use those on your behalf. It's gonna just assume, hey, you have given me permissions. So just like any other application, it has this all those permissions.
yeah,
It's gonna make use of those.
that makes
So
sense.
yeah, once you have obtained your token, you can you can start using the Slack MCP. So this one is populated. I'm gonna just copy paste my Slack bot token and then just confirm and deploy. It's gonna take a couple of seconds to deploy. Meanwhile, we can go ahead and see what it is doing. Okay, another one, it just single shotted into a single workflow. It's like okay, and then what it is doing, it's using MCP server, it's using a Slack server, correctly populating the URL, and in the authorization header it needs Slack bot token that we have just provided. And then the instructions are generic. Okay, you can do all of this stuff. Last text messages, decision made about this, what did we last talk about, create digest from. Okay, cool. It's ready. But before we go in there, I just want to go into the Slack that I connected and want to quickly show what actually we are dealing with. So can you see the Slack? I just switched the
Yeah,
screen.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So it has two channels. One is engineering. There is a bunch of discussion going on. I was testing it the other day and like, hey, I'm gonna give the demo, test this, and then there is like some conversation going on about the onboarding flow. We need to make a decision if we want multi screens or single screen, and then there is a social channel. Not much going on there. Just I dropped a message, hey, if somebody wants to grab food or the weekend. So that's the basic setup we have going on there. Okay, now with that in mind, we're gonna just go and like let's just start with this. Hey, summarize the last 5 messages in the social channel, right? um, and let's see what it does. And then I really like how it also gives you nice prompts and examples to just select for, and then you can just click on any of those and you can start using the application instead of figuring out what you can ask. Oh, here you go. So here's a summary of last 5 messages. So user this. So this is another privacy thing that Slack MCP does. You have to explicitly ask it, hey, translate these, and then it's gonna do another call that gives the mapping of the ID to the username. And otherwise, it's gonna just give you the user IDs. And then it's like, hey, this user asked the channel what everyone is up to this weekend and suggested grabbing some food. The channel was renamed from this to this. Okay, I wasn't expecting that. Okay, and then user created this saying a hello, and this user joined the channel, this joined the channel, invite. But let me know if you want more details. This is pretty cool. So if you have a company channel set up, maybe for stand up or updates or blockers or whatnot, you can literally have this application and you can go and type it in, and you're like, hey, what's going on there, what's happening, is somebody talking about XYZ thing, or is there is a blocker on a particular thing, how we can go about that and how we can improve that. And then it also lists all the other things that it can do, I guess based on just the examples that we gave or the tools calls. Anyhow, let's try another thing. So, what decision was made about the onboarding flow? So, the interesting thing to me about this is how it figures out, it needs to check either multiple channels, or it needs to go and see, um, it needs to go and see multiple channel and look for a particular thing without us explicitly telling it, you need to go and look into the engineering channel, or you need to go and look into the decisions of particular thing. um, so if we see here, the decision made about the new onboarding workflow is to replace the multi-step sign up with a single page onboarding form. That's the discussion that we had going on in the engineering. So it can go and figure out all of that. Then additionally help the documentation. Additionally, the help documentation will be updated to reflect the new flow, and a quick review is scheduled for next week to my year engagements. Cool. And then so it can do all that kind of stuff. And let's see. So this particular agent is designed to just go and read and see what's going on. But since Slack MCP is connected, it also has access to post something in one of those channels. I know this agent is not designed for that, but I just wanna give it a try and see what it does. So I'm gonna go ahead and just ask it, hey, summarize the decision on work onboarding flow, and post the summary in engineering channel as well. Let's see what it does. Not sure what it's gonna do. I haven't tried this before, but I'm optimistic. Let's see what it does.
Did we give this bot permissions to post the summary?
Yes.
Yeah,
Um, okay, here we go. So it just posted it.
nice.
The summary of the decision for the onboarding flow. So it's like, hey, it's a multi-step sign up process will be replaced with a single page onboarding form. The progress bar will be removed. It is no longer needed. Front end logic will be updated. Sport documentation will be updated. Review will be scheduled for next week to measure the engagement with the onboarding flow. So this is super helpful. I think I can see using this like in our own internal Slack channel, where it can just go and dig up stuff, and hey, this is what's going on, and this is the decision in particular thing. Or just automated stuff. If we could just put it on a cron, it goes and does summarize or something, and you're like, hey, this is what's happening. Or maybe a personal channel where it just goes and posts into your own channel, and it knows what's going on there. And it also shared the summary here, and it's taking care of all of those things behind the scene for us. So this is exciting. Do we have is there anything other, Ashar, that you want to give try, or is there any question that people are asking? um, we can answer
Okay,
that. Sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
So one of the viewers have asked, like, can I integrate Langbase with Instagram and WhatsApp to be an attendant and respond to support?
Yes, I think yeah. So I'm not particular aware of the details of how Instagram and WhatsApp APIs work, but you could definitely do that. So all you need to do is you need to fetch. I don't know if they have MCPs that you can just connect to your agent to talk to them. So if they would have an MCP, or even if you can build one, right, for WhatsApp or like an Instagram, since they have API, all you need is tools. So you can build one, and then you can just connect with Langbase, and it will take care of all of the stuff. Um, and then you could have a trigger on top. Let me actually just go ahead and show it here. There are a bunch of ways that it can do, right? So just extending on top of what we have above. So let's say here is your LLM, right? And then you need it to communicate. Sorry, Mm-mm. You need it to communicate, let's say, with WhatsApp, right? Um, so you need some way to access data. It could be either API or it could be MCP, um, that can talk to WhatsApp. And then in your MCP, in your an LLM, you can give it access via tool calls. So tool calls could be um, anything, like read messages from read messages, right? And then this could take in a particular group name, I guess, and then messages. And then once it can read messages, it second thing that it will need is reply messages, right? And then it
Yeah.
will need group name, then messages. um okay, it will be send message. Okay. And then that's one thing that can be doable with any of those things where you have WhatsApp or Instagram and whatnot, and you can just communicate with them. All you need to do is you need to set up this. Or the other way around that I could think is, once you get a message on WhatsApp in a group, which is like a sport group and whatnot, you need to have a trigger on top of that, which calls Langbase agent, right? Lang Langbase agent, and then it's gonna send you back the response. Or if you have like a send message configured with Langbase agent, it's gonna go ahead and send message in your particular channel. So Asha, do you have, I guess you have something to add.
I was just thinking about like how you're going to take input. So, for example, someone messages me on the WhatsApp, and how I would trigger it. But that's exactly what you told over here in the last step. Like, you'll need to have some sort of listener or something like that that will contact, basically connect with Language agent, and then the MCP will follow, start working.
Yeah, so that's the basic setup of communicating with pretty much any application out there that you want to smartly talk to. So that's how it's gonna work out.
Yeah.
Anyhow, is there any other questions?
So I was wondering myself, like, which other MCP servers does Langbase provide?
Yeah. So I went through this earlier as well. So with the so here's the thing, right? So you need an MCP server, and you need an MCP client, right?
Yeah.
And this server, it's usually written by the company which wants to expose its services, or the API or whatever to the LLMs, right? So you would see, and many official MCP server from many companies, they would have already hosted it, and you will likely get something like MCP dot github.com, right? Something like that. That will be their URL. And if they are our SSE, it would be like something like this, right? Then next step is this is available out there, right? You don't have to go and create it. You can create custom ones if you need to, right? If doesn't exist one,
Right.
you can host. And next step is just having an MCP client that can talk to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the good thing is, just since this is standardized protocol, um, servers are all the servers are written over that. And then um, all the clients, they follow that specification, and then they can go and talk to. So if you are
Okay.
using like Cloud Desktop, you just add this there and you can start talking to it, right? And if you are using, let's say, cursor, you can add this there and you can start talking to that. um, so this is the basic thing here. And then the good thing is, if you're using Langbase API, the Langbase API itself also acts as a MCP client, right? So if you're using the agent.run endpoint, you can just pass this there and you can start using an MCP server, right? So I'm gonna quickly show um, this thing again. So if you go into Langbase SDK, you go into agent.run, and then if you go to MCP servers, so you can just pass an array of MCP servers that you want to give it access to, right? Um, so you just give it all the MCP server that you want it to use to answer, authorization, token, rule, config, and whatnot. And then it will just act as a client layer on your behalf. And then if you want a more concrete example, if you go into example section, agent section, and then if you go agent run with MCP, you see how it is using deep wiki server. So this particular one is hosted by deep wiki. It is not written by Langbase, it is written by deep wiki. So they have their server, and you can just input this here, and then just start using that. It's that simple.
Got it.
Yeah. um do we have, I think we have a few minutes. Do we have any other questions?
So this, I think one viewer is asking like if we plan on adding more, MCP servers to our service.
Yeah, if you want to do what?
So if, like, for example, we have a Slack MCP server, right?
Yeah.
So if they're wondering like if we are willing to, if we are planning to, add more integrations
Oh, yeah.
in Language.
So if we, so I just showed, right? So what you can do is, you can just use the agent.run, and then you can pretty much add any of the MCP servers available out there, right? There are hundreds of them available, and you can just add the URL here and you can start using. So it's not actually blocked or limited by any of those things, like you can only use Slack ones or not. Those particular ones, the list that I showed, that is what command picks up automatically. But even within
Hmm.
command, you can go ahead and edit the code, and um, you can go ahead and edit the code, and you can just start using that, right?
Add
So
pretty much any MCP server available out there.
yeah, so pretty much any MCP server available out there, you can start using that. So there is no blocker there. This example is here. If you come into example section in this part, and you can just look it up and start using it.
All right. Yeah, that's helpful. One question that I have in my mind is about the SSE communication protocol. Like, can you expand a little bit on that? Like, is it like HTTP but for MCP servers?
It's not exactly that. I think it's a standard separate protocol. So the thing, how I look at it is, it needs a constant connection with the server. So instead of having there's a connection and you just send request at a particular time and you get it. Instead, like the typical connection, you need to have this connection which is like constantly established, so you're constantly listening to it. That's the difference between SSE versus like the regular protocol that we do for communication, like HTTP and stuff. This is how it started. Actually, that's why you see, like, the early on, you would see many desktop clients using that. You would see many of them. MCP clients would be, like the Cloud Desktop, or Windsurf or Cursor, and they had like a constant connection, and they could just have it up and running. Uh, I think recently Cloudflare was the one which pushed a lot for the HTTP streamable protocol one, and that is now officially part of MCP, and we're gonna see more and more servers that gonna be using that, which is
Hmm.
like any typical connection protocol out there, and you can use that. And we already see many people already supporting that, and building in fact servers for both SSE and HTTP.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
So one interesting question is that we have got in our chat is like, is there a package manager of sorts for MCP servers right now, like
What do you
pip or
mean?
something?
What do you mean package manager? Like
Package
a
manager for
like an NPM for
yeah, yeah, yeah,
MCPs? I don't think
yeah,
there
yeah,
is
yeah.
an official one, um, but I think there was one that Mentalify was maintaining, but there are unofficial ones. There are a bunch of them. You can just go and look at that, like MC, like you can. I think there might be like an awesome MCPs thing as well. Yeah, there is one. So if you see here, um,
You're sharing. Okay.
uh, can you see the screen? I
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah, I can see.
Okay, if you see the
Awesome,
like
MC.
an MCP servers.org, it's like awesome MCP servers. There are like bunch of them, like Airtable or like Agent QL, Bright Data sponsored, and like official, like probably the ones the companies made themselves, AWS, Base Row, AWS Talks, AWS Score, cost analysis. This is pretty useful one, I guess. You get the idea. There are a bunch of them out there that you can just start using.
Yeah.
But I think as far as I know, there is no official package manager sort of thing
Yeah,
out there.
no, this awesome MCP servers resource is pretty useful. Like I've been using it to like find out about new MCP servers day and like almost daily.
Yeah. All right. I think we have a time for one more question. But I think we can share our Discord. We have our Discord. I guess
Yeah,
I'm gonna just pin it here. Um, so langbase.com/discord. You guys can join that, hang out there. The team is usually hanging out there. If you have any questions, more questions, feedback, anything, feel free to drop in there, and somebody would be happy to help you out. Okay. Any other questions, or I think or
uh,
we can wrap it up.
we have one last question. I think someone is asking like, do you support A to A?
Oh, okay. So A to A, I think it's the agent to agent protocol that is introduced by Google. Um, as far as I know, it's the the support for that is in pretty early stage. I don't see any like a big implementation of that, or many people using that in the community, or a strong enough example out there to see, hey, that's why we need A to A, or this is what it's doing. But that's something I'm keeping an eye on. If we get an adoption, we see, many people are using it. There are good enough use cases that we need to support. I think that's something you're gonna see on Langbase sooner than later.
Awesome. So I think that's about it.
Yeah, I think that's what
Uh,
all that was all. If you guys have any other questions, you got this Discord link. Feel free to drop your question there. We'll be happy to help. Till then, take care. Have a good rest of the week.